I think we're going to see this a couple different ways. I know you guys really well. You know me. The first thing we're going to go over is the U.S. real estate market headed for a correction, strategist says. This is from Business Insider. Now, we don't have Business Insider on the show a lot, and not for any particular reason, but this one specifically is talking about real estate. It is claiming we're headed for a correction. Here are the top 3 main takeaways. Number 1, the real estate market could soon see a major leg down, strategist Chris Vermeulen says. Signals in construction activity are mirroring the period leading up to 2008 crash, and people don't realize real estate is primed and ready for another big major leg down. Okay.
All right.
Do you agree or disagree?
No.
Get into it. I already know.
You know, it's just, I love the way the article goes. It's talking about, you can see it right there, and it looks like it's going to be for single family residents regular. But then as it starts going down, it starts talking more about the actual the businesses, actual like commercial buildings. There you go.
Yeah, commercial.
So commercial, but we already know that. 2020 did change that. It just changed the way people are doing business.
Yeah,
bigger companies they realize like people can still work at home and they can still do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
and I can attest to that because I see Dylan asleep all day, even though he's at work.
Sorry, Dylan.
No, he's got a job. It's a remote job. Yeah. So they ask him to be at work at least 2 days out of the week, and the next 3 are remote.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see a lot of that. And we're starting to see, more here in California also is like these big old office buildings. Now they're trying to convert them into like condos.
Yeah.
And things are changing.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing right out the bat is like there's definitely a separation between residential real estate and commercial real estate. The commercial collapse is probably something that is more worthy of this title than the residential.
Correct.
So I'm going to put my stake in the ground on that. There is an argument to be made for there being a plateau in residential. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But as for this, like, they're citing that construction starts for single and multifamily homes have plateaued. They're saying that. They haven't, though. We talked about it on the show last week or 2 weeks ago where single family permits are down, but multifamily permits are up, and they've been up for the last 3 years. And the last 3 years have had the highest record of permits pulled in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's going for a correction because we still have inventory problems on the residential side.
Correct.
So what I'm curious to see is that they said that over $900 billion of debt is maturing this year. How much of the debt is going to actually affect the local economies of those, commercial building spots?
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think that's, something that a lot of people I think might not be really looking into, because if a lot of companies that are still operating in these commercial buildings, once they come mature and then they have to refinance, if they can't refinance them to something that makes sense, a lot of those businesses are either going to go out of business or have to struggle throughout the changes in that commercial loan.
They'll trim the P&L. They're going to trim their budget, which usually means people.
Yeah.
People or places. Typically, your most expensive things are going to be the place you have and the people that are there, and then associated costs like benefits and things like that. But in the $900 billion, first of all, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Number one, most of that, it's all commercial debt. So in that part of the article here, we're talking about commercial debt specifically. And again, the comparison to commercial debt to mortgage debt is like apples and oranges. I mean, we've seen a massive shift, not just because of like the shutdown and people staying at home and buying things online. There's a massive amount of consumer attention and dollar that is buying online that doesn't even go to the retail store anymore.
Yeah.
That you can but get your groceries online now. You can have DoorDash come to your house. You can go to the grocery store and pre-order and then have them bring it out to your car in the parking lot. So there's definitely a case to be made to, like, let's say, sound the alarm for a commercial collapse. But the conversion of that commercial real estate, I think, is going to be the next big thing to happen, because with an inventory like suffering on the residential side, but then available square footage that can be made into something else on commercial, that might be a good fit, if you will, to solve one problem by fixing another. Yeah.
And we're already starting to see that. Even malls are being turned into condos. I know that in San Diego, Hornet Plaza, that's one consideration that's happening.
And I don't think you know this, but my brother-in-law is actually working on that project. He does air balancing.
Okay.
And part of that is actually going to be research labs. So they're converting it for a different type of business. So it's still commercial in a sense, but it's not the retail commercial. And again, that's retail business that people have taken online.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you guys the last time I went to a store to buy like a pair of pants or anything. Like it's
I know. Everything's ordered online nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe I'll go to Kohl's, but we're next to a Kohl's. Yeah. There's one right like on our way to and from work every gosh darn day.
Yeah.
That's not the truth. That's not the case for everybody. They don't. the retail stores are really hurting.
No, it's really hurting where it's saying right here, commercial real estate foreclosures jumped 117% year over year in just the first quarter, according to data from Autumn. That's crazy. 117%.
That's a lot, and
That's
it's not
just
over.
nuts.
That's not over. People are going to have
Yeah.
to trim that from somewhere else. The commercial refinancing part has a lot to do. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. From talking to a couple of my business banker friends, they're trying to get their SBA clients refinance as fast as possible. The problem is that's connected with where we're at as far as the rate environment now. So they're having some of the same problems we are when it comes to the level of rates connected to loans. And these companies that maybe had an SBA at let's say 3 and now it's 7, it's a huge
It's a big
difference
difference
on millions of dollars. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I know, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, are we for a correction? I feel like we should.
Well, one of the things that I was talking to Andy on the last show is like, well, how high can we keep going? Like, there has to be a ceiling. There has to be a point where it doesn't crash, but it dips or corrects itself to something that, is a little bit more understandable than right now.
Understandable, affordable, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be the key word right there. But yes, we are due. We are due for some type of correction. It's just we really haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's hard to make a case that there's a correction around the corner because we've also been talking about how many investors are entering the market and how quicker investors are to deal sometimes than the consumer themselves. Like we have people that are approved to buy a house and they're getting outbid by someone else who's either there quicker or can do the terms better than the person who's got the VA loan or even the conventional loan. And I think the investment part of this, in the article, they're saying that the investors are actually part of what could spark a sell-off, which then would create a crash. But again, that is only one segment of the market.
Yeah.
The majority of residential real estate is not investor owned. It is owned by the people that own it.
Correct.
It's by the people that are living in it.
Homeowners still sit on the highest levels of equity ever.
And even if you had investors, I'm going to say flood the market. I used this number in a show last week, which was in quarter 1 of 2024, there were 44,000 investor purchases. So in the first 3 months of the year, we had 44,000 investor purchases.
Wow.
Okay. Well, even if let's just say half aren't going to come to the market tomorrow. Let's just say half of them did, 22,000. That means then on average, maybe 88,000 would come on to the market this year. Does that solve our inventory problems?
Not at all.
No.
Like, do 88,000 homes solve our problem between now and the end of the year? It doesn't.
It's
and
a little
so
dent.
even if half, which is an unghastly amount, came to the market, it's not going to fix it.
Yeah.
So I think that does warrant that we're going to have prices stuck. There is no crash around the corner in residential. People are still, there's more demand than there is supply. People, I think, are getting cold feet because of the rates, and the affordability is an obvious issue. But I don't think investors are running to sell their to sell their portfolios.
Yeah.
We don't see it happening yet.
Again, I mean, I'm glad that he did bring about he did bring upon this article because people have to also know that the business side will affect the residential side.
Yes,
And so-
absolutely.
And that's why I brought it up, because if like those people that get like either lose their jobs or they got to get cut because now the P&L needs to get cut, well, that directly affects the pocket that they're paying for their
Correct.
bills at
Exactly.
home, their mortgage and stuff, and then that causes a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to get at, like what snowball effect is going to come from that? Because one domino falls and the other one falls, and little by little they start falling.
and that's 900 billion.
Yeah.
That's just in this maturing this year. The following year,
There's another I don't know how much billions or millions there is.
We'll know then.
Another basket. Yeah.
No crystal ball.
Yeah, I don't know what it is next year either, but great.
There's another maturity year coming.
Exactly.
Great
Somebody
point.
matures every year. We mature.
Every year on the 13th of December for me.
No, great.
You need a lot of maturing there. But
So, do you guys think that
Touché.
if we're not racing towards a correction, do you think, because first of all, leg down is literally like coincides with a correction, like on a chart graph, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about leg up, leg down, and there's like an equivalence to that. I don't think we're gonna have a leg down. I think we might have plateauing happening. I guess that's the best way for me to describe it without drawing it on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Is I'm sure there's gonna be some plateau happen in 24 or 25 and then 26 maybe. I don't think that correction is it. That's
But
kinda-
we already seen that things are plateauing, even though with the limited supply of homes that we have in San Diego right now, and actually in some states because of the abnormal high interest rate environment right now is actually making people kind of sit on the fence, right? So we are starting to see a little more inventory.
Yeah.
We are starting to see a lot more price reductions.
Yeah.
I believe this month was one of the slowest months in home purchases since 2001.
Yeah.
You know, so-
it was. That's actually coming up in one of the other articles. So you're right, because again, some of those variables, they don't jive together to say,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, it's going to skyrocket forever. Well, it's not going to skyrocket forever, but also it's not careening towards towards.
And
Earth
again, let's be realistic. The reason for the price reductions, guys, is not just because the property was set at the right proper price.
Right.
No, usually what a sender's tendency is I'm going to put my house, I think it's worth $1 million.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
because the neighbor, and you always think that your house is best than the neighbor. So they put it, and really who predicts that price is the next buyer.
Right.
The market does.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, so also remember, for those of you who are watching us maybe for the first time or newer to us, sometimes price reductions are in concession for giving up something else. Oh, your roof needs half the roof needs to be replaced. Okay, well, instead of giving you $10,000 to replace it, I'll give you a price reduction of $5,000 or
Exactly.
$10,000. So sometimes the price reduction is connected to something else that's inside the deal. That isn't because the house isn't worth that. It's that there's something else that's being worked on inside the escrow process that means that outcome is a lower price.
That's a great.
Yeah.
Great
So
point.
just a caveat there. It's not always like that someone's overpaying. It's not always that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That may or may not be a real example I talked to someone about this week.
All right.